How to create a life that honors your emotional needs. Have you ever looked around your home, your daily routine, even your friendships, and felt like something's missing, but you can't quite name it? It's not sadness, not exactly. It's more like a quiet ache. A feeling that your days are full, but your heart still feels a little empty. You're not alone in that. So many of us, after 60, find ourselves in a strange in-between place. The kids are grown. The job, if there still is one, might not hold the same weight. The schedule is lighter, yet somehow, the emotional load feels heavier. And it's easy to think that we should just be grateful, that wanting more, emotionally, makes us ungrateful. But here's the truth, honoring your emotional needs isn't selfish. It's survival. It's how you stay whole when life shifts around you. Because we are still here. Still breathing. Still dreaming. And that means our emotional needs still matter deeply. Maybe you've spent most of your life taking care of others, raising children, supporting a partner, showing up for friends, neighbors, even colleagues. That kind of care leaves deep marks of love, but sometimes it also leaves little room for your own voice. For your own comfort. For your own space to just feel what you feel without having to explain or justify it. Creating a life that honors your emotional needs isn't about tearing everything down and starting over. It's about small, intentional shifts. It's about listening inward instead of always outward. It's about asking yourself, gently, what do I need today, and then allowing the answer to matter. Sometimes, the answer is surprisingly simple. Like quiet. We live in a noisy world. TVs humming in the background. Phones buzzing with news, alerts, and other people's needs. But emotional peace often begins with silence. Have you ever sat on your porch or by your window in the early morning, just watching the light change? That moment, when nothing is demanded of you, and you don't have to be anyone but yourself, that's sacred. That's nourishment. That's something to protect. Other times, what we need is connection, but not just any kind. Not small talk or superficial check-ins. We need connection that feels safe, warm, and real. That lets you say, I'm not okay today, and not be judged. Or I'm proud of myself, and not be dismissed. Emotional connection after 60 is less about quantity and more about depth. One person who really sees you is worth more than a dozen who barely ask how you are. And then there are moments when what your heart really needs is permission, to feel, to grieve, to celebrate, to rest. There's this idea floating around that after a certain age, we're supposed to have it all figured out. As if the waves of life stop crashing once the candles on the birthday cake hit 70. But that's not real. Emotions don't retire. They evolve. And we deserve space to keep evolving with them. Maybe it starts with saying no to things that drain you. That gathering you've attended for years that now leaves you exhausted? It's okay to step back. That conversation where you feel invisible? It's okay to protect your energy. Because honoring your emotional needs means recognizing that not every yes is worth the cost, and not every silence is peace. Sometimes, you need to speak up, even if your voice shakes. Tell someone how you truly feel. Or, if that's not safe, write it in a journal. Let the truth live somewhere. Don't keep swallowing it down like it doesn't matter. It does. You do. Maybe you grew up in a time where emotions were meant to be hidden or have gotten over quickly. But now, in this season of life, you get to rewrite that rule. You get to slow down and ask, what am I really feeling right now? Not to fix it, but to honor it. And in doing so, you start building a life where your inner world has just as much room as your outer one. There's beauty in becoming emotionally honest with yourself. And letting go of roles you no longer need to perform. And shedding the pressure to be fine all the time. And instead, creating a space, within and around you, where your truth is safe. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. That's strength. And no one else can do that for you. Only you can learn the sound of your own heart and choose to make space for it in your daily life. Whether that's through morning walks alone with your thoughts, deep talks with someone you trust, or simply pausing during the day to check in with yourself like you would with a dear friend. The first steps might feel unfamiliar, but over time, they become a rhythm, a way of life. One where you're not chasing happiness, but honoring presence. Not waiting for others to make you feel worthy, but claiming that worth from within. Because no matter how old you are, your emotional needs are valid. And the life you create now, yes, now, can be rich, meaningful, and deeply nourishing. There's a quiet power in becoming your own emotional home. A place where every part of you, your joys, your sadness, your hopes, even your confusion, is welcome. And when you start living from that place, everything begins to shift. Not all at once. Not in dramatic ways. But gently, like sunlight moving across the floor. One of the most important pieces of this shift is learning how to set emotional boundaries without guilt. You see, for many of us, we've been conditioned to think that kindness means saying yes, even when we're tired, overwhelmed, or quietly falling apart inside. But real kindness starts with honesty. And that includes being honest with yourself about what you can and can't hold. Maybe someone in your life often unloads their worries on you. Every conversation feels heavy. And you leave it drained, not uplifted. In your younger years, maybe you'd sit through it anyway, trying to be the strong one, the listener, the fixer. But now you get to say, I care about you, but I need to take care of myself, too. And if that means stepping back, even just a little, that's okay. You're not abandoning anyone. You're simply returning to yourself. Another key piece in honoring your emotional needs is creating space for things that truly light you up. And I'm not just talking about hobbies or passing distractions. I'm talking about soul-filling, joy-stirring, deeply personal passions. Things you may have set aside years ago because there was no time. Things that got buried under responsibilities. Maybe it was painting, or dancing, or gardening. Maybe it was storytelling or writing poems you never showed anyone. Now is not too late. Not by a long shot. Reclaiming these pieces of yourself isn't indulgent. It's essential. It's how you come back to life. It's how you say to the world, and more importantly, to yourself, I still matter. I still have something to give. And I still have something to feel. You might be surprised by how much joy returns when you allow yourself to explore again. When you take a class just because it interests you. When you walk outside and actually notice the way the breeze moves through the trees. When you cook a meal that's just for you, plated beautifully, even if no one else is there to see it. It's not about proving anything. It's about savoring the moment. And feeling your own heart rise to meet you there. And then there's this, sometimes, honoring your emotional needs means facing things you've been carrying for far too long. Old hurts. Buried grief. Words that were never said. Forgiveness that never came. Letting yourself feel that pain can be scary. But you don't have to do it all at once. You can start by naming it. Even if it's just to yourself. That moment hurt me. That silence left a mark. I still feel the weight of that goodbye. And then, when you're ready, you let some of it go. Not because you forget, but because you deserve to be free. Carrying pain for years doesn't make you stronger. Releasing it, with tenderness, makes you braver. You don't need to solve every emotional knot in one sitting. You just need to show up for yourself, again and again, with kindness. The way you would for a dear friend. Because honestly, you are worthy of that same care. You always have been. And maybe, part of honoring your emotional life is learning how to receive. So many of us are experts at giving our time, our energy, our love. But receiving? That can feel foreign. Or even selfish. But it's not. Allowing yourself to be comforted, supported, seen, that's part of emotional wholeness. When someone offers you help, you can say yes. When someone compliments you, you can receive it without deflection. When you feel loved, you can let it in, without that little voice whispering, you don't deserve this. Because you do. You absolutely do. This stage of life can be one of deep richness if you let it. Not because everything is perfect, but because you're finally allowed to stop pretending it needs to be. You can let the masks fall. You can be soft and fierce and real. And you can choose, every single day, to build a life where your emotions are not just tolerated, but valued. That might mean changing how you spend your mornings. Maybe you start the day not with chores or news or obligations, but with something gentle. A few moments of stillness. A song that calms you. A prayer or affirmation that brings you back to center. Because how you begin your day matters. It sets the tone not just for your schedule, but for your spirit. And it might mean choosing your company more carefully. Not everyone gets access to your heart. Not anymore. The people you allow in now should be people who nourish you, not deplete you. Who see the depth of who you are and cherish it. Because you're not here to please everyone. You're here to live fully. Freely. Emotionally whole. When you begin to create a life that truly honors your emotional needs, you start to notice something beautiful. The pressure eases. The constant striving, comparing, and questioning begins to quiet down. In its place, a deeper sense of peace emerges, one that doesn't depend on how others see you, but on how gently you choose to see yourself. That peace grows stronger every time you pause and check in with your own heart. Every time you stop pretending and allow yourself to feel exactly what you feel. No explanation. No apology. Just truth. And in that truth, there's power. Because honoring your emotional needs doesn't mean chasing happiness every moment. It means making room for your whole self, your joy, your sadness, your hope, your fear. It means giving yourself permission to be a work in progress, even now, even still. There's no expiration date on becoming who you really are. Some days, the most emotional nourishment you can give yourself is rest. Not because you're lazy or weak, but because your body and soul need space to exhale. Maybe it's a quiet afternoon nap. Maybe it's sitting by the window with a cup of tea and no agenda. Maybe it's turning off your phone, just for a while, and listening to the sound of your own breath. These aren't small things. They're sacred. They're healing. And they're yours to claim. Other days, emotional nourishment comes from laughter. From letting go, even just for a moment, of the heaviness you've been carrying. From sharing a funny story, watching something silly, or spending time with someone who makes your spirit lighter just by being themselves. Laughter is medicine. Not just for the mind, but for the heart. You might find that some emotional needs are harder to meet, like the need to feel needed. After retirement, or after the kids move on, it's easy to feel like you've lost your place. Like the world no longer turns toward you the way it once did. But your value has never been tied to productivity. Your worth has never been measured by your usefulness. You matter simply because you exist. And you are needed in ways you may not even see. That wisdom you've gathered over the years, someone out there needs to hear it. That gentle presence you bring into a room, it changes the energy. That way you listen, without judgment, without rushing, it's a rare gift. You don't have to be in charge to be impactful. You don't have to be busy to be beloved. You just have to be real. When you live a life that honors your emotional needs, you also start to let go of what no longer serves you. Guilt. Old roles. Unrealistic expectations. You stop measuring your life against timelines and to-do lists and start measuring it in meaning. In moments. And how your heart feels when you lay your head down at night. You learn to recognize emotional hunger, not for food or distractions, but for connection, for purpose, for calm. And instead of ignoring it or pushing it down, you begin to meet it. Like you would meet a child reaching out to you. With patience. With warmth. With love. And little by little, that love starts to reshape everything. The way you speak to yourself becomes softer. The way you face challenges becomes braver. The way you move through the world becomes more intentional, more grounded. Not because life is suddenly perfect, but because you've stopped abandoning yourself in the process. That's what it means to honor your emotional needs. To return to yourself again and again as your own safe place. As your own source of comfort, clarity, and strength. You don't have to do it all at once. You don't need a perfect plan. All you need is to start asking yourself every single day one small but powerful question: how can I care for my heart today? Maybe the answer will be silence, or connection, or play, or tears, or celebration. Whatever it is, let it guide you. Let it shape the choices you make, not from fear or habit, but from truth. And as you walk forward, let this be your reminder: it's never too late to create a life that feels like home inside your own soul. Never too late to give yourself what you've spent years giving to others. Never too late to begin again. So take a deep breath. Feel your feet on the ground. And know this: you are allowed to want more. You are allowed to feel deeply. You are allowed to live fully. And you are not alone. If this message spoke to something in you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Share a comment. Let others know they're not alone either. And if you found comfort here, go ahead and like this video, or subscribe for more content that speaks to the heart. This space is for you. Always has been. Here's to living a life that honors every part of who you are. Here's to the wisdom, the softness, the courage, and the joy. Here's to you, just as you are, and more than enough.